Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The second Fighters Pass is officially underway, and the first fighter has finally been unveiled. So let's see where this noodly newcomer fits in with the totally infallible math that we constructed over the course of 2 prior videos. But with such a limited selection of attributes to choose from, every new character who gets in the game denies many more of their only chance. So let's seize this exciting opportunity to focus on the negatives. Well, that's where I, the Backseat developer, come in. So let's take a much more gritty and mature approach instead, and look at what effect Min Min's appearance has had on potential future fighters by investigating which characters are now, mathematically speaking, eliminated from contention to appear in Smash Ultimate. But before we compile our rogues gallery of mathematical miscreants, let's first look at what character components Smash's new edition actually removes from play. So what effect does this long-limbed lass have on our beautifully formulated findings? Min Min is a character hailing from 2017's ARMS, a series new to Smash's roster of playable fighters, meaning Min Min comfortably occupies one of 3 available spots for characters from a new series, and also one of 2 spots for characters from the 2010s. Next, coming from Nintendo, a company I'm pretty confident is Japanese, Min Min gobbles up both the returning publisher spot and an Eastern spot to boot. But now things start to get a little bit tricky with the genre. It's pretty well established at this point that ARMS is a fighting game, albeit one that's pretty distinct from the competition. And that is great news, because fighting games were one of Smash Bros.' top 5 most represented genres. The less good news, however, is that this alone isn't enough to get a representative in Smash. As a quick recap, in our earlier videos we looked at the entire Smash roster, including Fighters Pass 1, and worked out to what degree many different character attributes are represented, then used this data to predict potential Fighters Pass 2 lineups, assuming a similar pattern continued. However, since there are only 6 spots on Fighters Pass 2, each attribute needs around 16% representation to be guaranteed a newcomer with that trait. In terms of genres, platformers and RPGs both easily exceeded this goal and got 2 shiny genre reps each. However, no other genres were able to achieve such a feat, and unfortunately that includes fighting games which, despite their top 5 spot, come 6% short of their percentage goal. So let's make ourselves a brand new genre that fits ARMS and has over that magical 16% by combining some of these leftovers together. As mentioned previously, ARMS is unlike most fighting games in that it's focused very heavily on ranged combat, with an unusual viewpoint for a fighting game designed to allow players to aim their attacks. And with our pre-established definition of shooters as a game whose gameplay involves aiming and shooting at things, I think we've got ourselves a genre pairing which is a match made in heaven for ARMS. And as a lovely bonus, would leave us with around 7% shooter representation left over for any future newcomers. Goodness, I am good at this. Finally, we reach gender, and while this may look like a simple pick on the grid, it's not quite that simple. Much like genre, gender was another element where combining less represented attributes together was necessary. In this case, the females and the neithers. But what are the neithers? Well, as we defined them, a neither is a character that doesn't clearly fit into the male or female categories, and also doesn't qualify as both. So that's characters like the canonically genderless Mewtwo, or... Look, let's not get into this again. But let's not forget, this isn't an even 50-50 split between female and neither. All that's actually necessary to make the math work is for about 1/5 of our female newcomer to fit this neither requirement. Like, say, their mechanical arms. No, not their arms, their arms. As in the various mechanical fists which augment each fighter's body. Not to be confused with their arms, which are called arms. All clear? Great. And if you're one of the approximately 59% of people who think that these wearable weapons don't really count as mechanical augments, and that I'm stretching the rules a little bit, then there's really only one way to teach me a lesson. And that's by liking this video, hitting that subscribe button, and waiting patiently for the video on the inevitable future fighter that actually does snap the math over its knee like a tiny little twig. Your desire for schadenfreude is noted and respected. Well, with me temporarily in the clear, let's look at the characters attempting to get into Smash who certainly aren't anymore. Much quicker than usual, we're at the good part. It's time for some backseat game development. So, after removing these now taken attributes from the grid, and creating a brand new sleeker and equally infallible one for the 5 remaining newcomers, we've got 4 different groups who no longer meet our standards, and are therefore locked out of Smash forever, as you can see by this overly dramatic visual aid. But whom's to be behind these bars? Our first cell contains a trio of ladies who were, up until now, competing for Min Min's gender rep. Who do we have in cell number 1? These 3 technologically gifted teens are all kicked from contention by being a female character paired with a mechanical buddy. We've got Diva and her mech from Overwatch, Tron Bonne from Mega Man Legends and her custom Gustav mecha from The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, and finally Mechanica from ARMS. What a small world. But let's face it, lady driving a mech is somewhat of an incredibly specific category, and isn't really a cataclysmic loss. However, the next cell contains substantially more inmates. This time they're all members of a now totally mathematically exhausted genre. Yes, every single fighting game character is now out of the running according to the math, with its 9.9% genre representation thoroughly accounted for in Fighters Pass 2, forcing us to bid farewell to Scorpion, Yoshimitsu, and frankly too many more. On to our next cell, let's return to the fallout of Min Min's gender rep. Of course, a female paired with a mechanical mate isn't the only way to interpret female plus neither. And our next cell contains all those unfortunate females whose minds reside on a piece of celluloid. Yes, in a real heartbreaker, all the digital dames are now out of the running, including everyone's favourite binary-based lass from the 2010s, Fi from The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. So that's most of the cells filled to the brim. But the 4th and final cell is very different, and contains only one single inmate. A terrifying force who, up until now, was deserving of a spot and had it stripped from her all too soon. This somewhat ambiguously but certainly inconsistently gendered lady has unfortunately been cast from math's favour and is now officially out of the running. If I was Min Min, I'd watch my back for retribution, because a little birdo told me being behind bars hasn't stopped her before. No, I'm sure she's joking. Well, with all the inmates accounted for, it's time to slam the cell doors shut, throw away the keys, and get as far away as we bloody well can. Well, that is, of course, until the next batch of inmates arrives, when the second fighter is announced.
おはようございます。
So that's that. Min Min's edition has been thoroughly accounted for, and with just a little bit of light bending, the math is still intact. For now at least. I'm just glad I didn't go ahead and predict more fighters. Can you imagine if I wasn't correct again? How embarrassing. Thankfully, I learned my lesson by proudly announcing characters who will never, ever be in the game. Something that will undoubtedly age much, much better. Thanks for watching this episode of Backseat Game Development. To continue watching the Smash Math saga, or just to watch some of my other fun experiments, why not subscribe and stick around? I also have a Twitter, @BackseatGameDev, so get some of that stuck in your face too. Thanks once again, and I'll see you next time.